$10.5 million. That's how much money Shane Ehrsam does in sales after acquiring his business, North Texas Trailers, a multi-location trailer dealership located in 3 different cities near the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. In this video, we walk through one of Shane's dealerships. We talk about Shane's journey acquiring his business.
Our average trailer sale in 2023 was around $9,000.
And some of the challenges he's encountered along the way.
So this key employee gets sick, then is supposed to come back, then says they have COVID, then says they get another thing, and then at the end of those 3 weeks when they were supposed to come back, they quit.
Listening to this discussion, you will learn the inner workings of how a $10.5 million trailer dealership business operates. You will hear Shane walk us through some of the tactics he's implemented in his company to add value to it.
I become that one-source solution for all of their trailer needs.
And you can steal these tactics for yourself to add value in your business. So without further ado, please enjoy this interview with Shane Ehrsam. So we're sitting here today with Shane Ehrsam, who's going to walk us through his trailer dealership. We are in Dallas, Texas. Shane, I just want to say, man, thanks for doing this. It's been really fun.
Happy to do it.
Yeah. We're going to talk about Shane's business, a little bit about his story acquiring, and more about what he's looking forward to do in the future. Happy to get started.
Yeah.
So let's start walking around, man. Give us a little tour of your trailer dealership. Show us some cool trucks and what you guys sell here.
Yeah, so this is our first location. So of course, I didn't start the business. I bought the business from the founders. They started with this location in 2007. And since then, we've grown to 2 other locations, which unfortunately we won't get to see today. But we have another location in Fort Worth that was bought and acquired in 2009. And then another location in McKinney, Texas that was started in 2012. So all 3 locations have been up and running for over 12 years now. We're coming up on the businesses, or we've exceeded. We started in 2007, so 17 years.
That's awesome. And when did you acquire it?
So we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary in a couple weeks. It was June 3rd of 2022 that I acquired. So this is home base. The building itself was remodeled some years back. Apparently there was a massive flood here, and it was about 4 feet of water going all the way back. So the old owners had to kind of redo the shop here. But with any trailer dealership, the most important thing is just land space. You just need acreage, right? And in DFW, where land is at a premium, it's more expensive, right?
Right.
And so our yard is actually a bit smaller than what you would see from comparable trailer companies. We have about a little under 2 acres here. More, kind of common in the industry is going to be 4 to 5 plus acres. And so that's why you'll see a lot of trailer dealerships outside of town, right? In any metropolitan area you go to, you're going to see trailer dealerships kind of on the outskirts, generally along a highway. So they have 5 to 6, maybe even 10 plus acres because you need area to store your inventory, right? One other interesting fact in Texas, trailer sales don't generate any taxable income for the local municipality. It's all state taxes. And so local municipalities, cities and counties don't have as much natural interest to have trailer dealerships as they would other businesses where they can collect sales tax.
Right.
Now, all of our parts and repairs, there's general sales tax collected on that, but the large ticket items selling a trailer, it's only going towards the state.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk more about that. Let's take a look around, and we're going to talk about your journey.
Yeah, I mean, this is all the inventory in the shop, and then inside's kind of our parts inventory in our offices. So really kind of, we'll see both at some point.
We'll start our way this way, but while we walk, let's zoom out for a second. Tell everyone your background. What were you doing before acquiring?
Yeah, so I always wanted to be in management. So I found a job that gave me management experience basically right out of college. I worked for a uniform supply company. And did that for 11 years. Was promoted multiple times, moved across the country twice. So multiple stops, managed large teams. At the end of my career, was managing the whole state of Texas. Had about 750 employees and about $125 million P&L. And so, unlike some people that come into the SMB community, I had all the management experience. I just didn't have any of the deal-making search experience, right? Yeah. So in a way that, gave me a leg up certainly for the operating of the business, but during the search phase, it was pretty intimidating, and I felt really like a fish out of water going against people with PE and IB backgrounds. because I'd never done really any kind of M&A before.
And when sellers are evaluating two different acquirers, it helps that know that someone knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you would have known what you're doing at the operational end, but for acquiring, you were seller asked you a question, you're like, don't worry, I have the answer, and then you run to someone else who does, and you come back to them. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I just try to soak up as much information and learn. And now there's so many great resources out there. I happen to be a member of the Acquisition Lab started by Walker Diebold.
Right.
That was great for me. That's not necessarily the answer for everyone. There's a lot of great information out there. You can go and get that information. And so I did. I just studied. I learned. I asked a lot of questions. I talked to people who had done this before. But I was confident that whenever I found the business, I was going to have the management experience necessary to run it. Right? I had run large teams before, even in a corporate environment, but I had managerial responsibility for employees. And, starting off as a 23-year-old, I was managing people twice my age in a union environment. And that grows you up pretty fast as a manager, right?
I've listened to you talk on other podcasts about, why you were interested in getting into leadership early on, and why that's important to you, even in acquiring a business, to be more of the leader who actually has, equity, ownership, control. But I don't think I've heard you talk about why that was important to you. Is there a specific aspect to leadership that you particularly enjoy?
There's a lot of aspects. And I think for some people, leadership does come more naturally to some than others. And for me, I do think it came naturally. I always had an interest in business from middle school, high school on. I played a lot of sports teams. I didn't really do the Boy Scout thing, but I did, I had, extracurricular activities where, whether in a formal or informal way, I generally kind of took somewhat of a leadership role, kind of a group rally or kind of role. And I don't know, it just fit my personality. And but going into college, I wanted to be a business owner. My dad was a business owner of a franchise, so that was kind of the model I wanted to follow. And I guess I just had it in my head that you need to go out and get managerial experience under the safety of a corporate environment, and then the skills you can acquire along the way will help you eventually become a business owner.
Right.
I didn't think it would take as long as it did to move out of corporate into this, but
Well, let's talk about that transition. So, you're sort of struggling through a search. You go through the Acquisition Lab. I assume that was very helpful in your search?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was very helpful. Like I said, I didn't have the deal making experience. I didn't really know how to evaluate companies, what to be looking for, how to go out into the broker market. And, the books give you a pretty good roadmap. You can go from there. Acquisition Lab just kind of dug 3 levels deeper on each of those things. And then I got to talk to, I was connected immediately with hundreds of other people going through the same journey and could bounce ideas off of them. What's working for them, what's not. And people in the Acquisition Lab were at all kind of stages of their search journey. There were people that were full-time. This is all they're doing, like they're going to acquire, like me. And there were people that were still working, just trying to understand what is ETA, what is this search thing. And so it was great to have people that you could bounce those ideas off of, and people that were in all stages of those journeys. But yeah.
And let's talk more about the actual sourcing of the acquisition. Did you lean into brokered search, proprietary? You split between the two? Where did you go?
I was exclusively broker search. Speed was my number one my number one biggest priority. I wanted to find something quick, and I knew I was searching in a geographically constrained area in the DFW area. We didn't want to move. And so it was like, all right, well, based on everything I've learned in the Acquisition Lab from Walker, brokered search is going to be the fastest way to find businesses that are ready to transact, right? Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to, I didn't have a 2-year time horizon, so I needed to find something quick. So rather than try to, go down the road of proprietary, find a business, then convince them to sell, then, educate them on the whole process.
Yeah, and when you were uneducated about the process yourself, right? Yeah, you wanted a seller who was ready to go. And although, a lot of people dislike brokers to a degree, they vet the sellers who are actually looking to move quickly.
Yeah, 100%. And brokers come in all shapes and sizes. There's really good ones. And luckily, the one that represented the sellers on this business was definitely at the much higher end of the quality of brokers that I spoke with. And he was extremely helpful in anchoring, the business from a valuation standpoint and reality, from teaching the sellers what to expect throughout the process, from negotiating the finer points of the contract where the sellers and I disagreed, and bringing both parties back to the table.
That's good. A little bit more of like a mediator rather than
Yeah,
a one-side negotiator on the seller's behalf.
And good brokers, while they represent the seller, they also represent the deal, right? They're trying to accomplish what the sellers are trying to accomplish, which is to successfully transact and sell their business to the person who's going to lead it for however many more years, right? That's what the sellers want to get to. How they get there and how quickly is, ultimately their situations may dictate some of that. And our sellers wanted to be able to move quickly, and so the brokers help that happen.
What were you most worried about when you were reviewing this acquisition on the operational side? Were there any, were you worried about your lack of experience in a dealership? Were you worried, you're going to buy the company, everyone's going to quit? What were some of your concerns going into it?
I was definitely worried about just being in a completely different business model, a dealership retail model with, millions of dollars worth of inventory, representing manufacturers, what that relationship looks like, just trailers in general. I'm not a very mechanically inclined individual. So, am I going to be able to relate to my employees that do have all this mechanical knowledge, all this product knowledge?
That has to be a real concern around most people acquiring a company in the industry that they don't have any experience in, because it's very hard for someone who has been a GM of a trailer dealership for 10 years to only look for a trailer dealership around the U.S. There's not many of them that come up around that time. There's not many that come up for an acquisition. So most searchers end up acquiring a company outside of their core expertise. I bet a lot of people share that with you.
Yeah, and I looked at a lot of different types of businesses. I looked at some manufacturing businesses, and the further and further I got away from kind of B2B services, which is what I was doing in my corporate role, which is renewing contracts, customer facing, figuring out customer issues, figuring out how to deliver a good service that the customers are happy with, motivate and a team, get them to sell internally. Like, those are all things that I could do well, and I felt could apply to a lot of different types of businesses. The further and further I got away from that model, the more and more I felt maybe I'm not the right person to lead this kind of business, right? So, I think that any acquisition entrepreneur can go and find businesses in an industry that they're not comfortable with. There's definitely a learning curve, but you don't need to know everything. I can't get under one of these trailers and repair them the way my guys can, but I can look for opportunities to make their lives easier, right? I can either throw money at a problem, I can throw people at a problem, I can get resources, I can collaborate, I can figure out a better, more efficient way to do something. How to repair a trailer, I don't need to be the one that knows how to do that, as long as I can create an environment where I have good quality technicians that are doing that.
It sounded like you were confident in so many other aspects of B2B services that the application of like what you were B2B servicing didn't necessarily matter as much as being able to have enough of your hands on the business, and then the finer aspects of how do you repair a trailer, and other B2B services like commercial janitorial. Maybe it was like you would be able to handle and understand more still customer relationships, sales. You had a lot more in common, and that's where confidence came in from before you actually acquired it.
Yeah, 100%.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Let's talk about first 90 days.
Yeah, so first 90 days was, I did a stock purchase, which is unique in the ETA world.
Right.
And so the business account didn't change, the dealer licenses didn't change, all the aspects of the business basically stayed intact. It was a matter of just changing ownership. So the first really 30 days the first 2 weeks was all about that basically. And we had to do a full-blown inventory count. So if you look just over here, we probably have $10,000, $15,000, actually more than that, probably 25,000-ish worth of axles and other parts over here. We've probably got another 30 or 40,000 in the store. We had to hand count every single part.
Wow. Was there no inventory account when you acquired it?
No, we have an ERP system that keeps a running count of our inventory. It's our POS. It's our inventory management. It's how we manage our trailer inventory as well as our parts inventory. But it had been many years since we had done a full-blown hand count of the inventory.
Yeah.
And as part of our working capital, we needed to count that to make sure that what they were saying was they were selling with the business was actually what I was receiving. And so that took up a lot of time. In fact, the very first day, that's all the team did. We brought everyone here. We announced the acquisition, introduced myself, and then it was like, all right, We're closed.
Everyone do a lot of work immediately.
Yeah.
This is not fun, and we're just counting stuff.
Yeah, we were closed to the public that day, and we said, we just got to go out and count this. And so we broke up into teams, and we had this whole system. And then, so the next 3 days, the sellers and I, husband and wife and I, all we did was basically take that hand counted information and input it into our system. And then by the end of that, we were able to say, okay, here was a snapshot of the inventory prior to acquisition. Here's where it's at today. What's the delta? So we did that. And then because of the same bank account, there was a whole lot of pre-close transactions that hit the bank account post-close, and then some post-close stuff that, so it was just a matter of basically trying to account for all of that. Mm-hmm. And then it was basically trying to learn our systems. I had to learn how to do payroll. I had to learn it was my first time using QuickBooks. So I'm learning from the wife to do a lot of the back-end admin staff. We lost a key employee in the first couple weeks. I'm figuring out that situation. I had to renew one of our government contracts. So me and the seller worked very closely on getting that done because that was a pretty big lift. It was just a matter of all right, what's the checklist, especially these kind of non-negotiables. One of the dealer licenses had to be renewed. The government contract had to be renewed. And we're changing the ownership name, right? We're changing everything from their name to mine, but keeping the EID and all these other things the same. So that was a lot of... Unfortunately, it wasn't as much working in the business alongside my employees as I probably would have liked for the first 30 days. But I knew I had a relatively limited amount of time with the sellers to make sure we got all this back-end stuff correct and that money was flowing to the right places. The employees continue to get paid on time, all of those things.
Awesome. Well, man, let's get out of this Texas heat. Let's go into your office and have another conversation. Wow, isn't this a great video so far? Well, there's a reason it's so great, because this video is sponsored by Unlimited Content. Unlimited Content is the best done-for-you SEO service in the world. If you're busy like me, you don't have time to research keywords or write your own articles or learn an entirely new marketing channel like SEO. You're a business owner. You want to stay in your zone of expertise and focus on the most impactful activity in your business. For most of you, learning an entirely new skill set and trying to spend months learning the ins and outs of SEO is not the most impactful thing you can be doing in your business. That's why I wanted to tell you about Unlimited Content. Unlimited Content is a light switch for getting more leads into your business without you actually having to do anything. One moment you have no SEO strategy, you're in the dark, you have no Google search presence and few organic leads. But after working with Unlimited Content, you will have the most talented SEO experts on your team pumping out new articles every single day to make your business more discoverable and drive leads straight to you. Unlimited Content is also the most affordable SEO agency I've ever seen. For only $400 a month, the Unlimited Content team will identify high opportunity keywords you are unaware of right now. They will write and edit all of your daily blog posts. They will auto-publish all of those articles straight to your website and auto-index everything to Google for you. And at the end of all of this, they provide you with crystal clear data into the performance of all of the campaigns they're running for you. And again, they do all of this without any of your involvement for only $400 a month. That's a good deal. So go ahead and check out Unlimited Content at unlimitedcontent.com. Okay, back to the video. Cool, Shane. Well, it's a lot more cooler in your office. Very hospitable of you. Thank you for having us again.
Yeah.
We were just talking about a few very challenging problems that happened in the first 90 days. One thing I'm interested is you had a key employee transition. I'm curious if you could talk about maybe what this person's position was and how they left the company, and then how you backfilled the amount of work. And filled in the actual amount of work that they were doing. How did you adjust for that key loss early on?
Yeah, so in our model, and when I acquired, each of the 3 locations has 1 sales rep, 2 parts and service advisors. So they're customer facing, giving estimates on repair jobs, selling parts over the counter, doing basically both parts, and then 2 mechanics or technicians. 15 employees. And then a couple back of the office folks. That was the structure. Well, in McKinney,
it's a relatively smaller store from a sales perspective and inventory perspective. So we had one key employee that was both a service advisor and a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I acquired in June of 22. So it is still COVID times, but on the latter half of kind of the pandemic.
Right.
So this key employee got COVID, was out sick, and I'm, as a new business owner, I know how we handled it in corporate America, but I'm trying to figure out like what is the protocol, what's going on here. Anyways, long story short, this employee gets sick, then is supposed to come back, then says they have COVID, then says they get another thing, and so like they end up being out for like 3 weeks,
mm-hmm.
and then at the end of those 3 weeks, when they were supposed to come back, they quit.
Okay.
And so it was just this long, drawn out process to ultimately be like, I'm not staying. And so she was a very key employee because she was doing both sales and helping on the parts and service side.
Gotcha, because that
McKinney.
location was small.
Yeah. But it's a very busy location on parts and service. And so now it's down to one customer facing parts and service advisor, 2 technicians, no sales rep. So once me and the sellers kind of did what we needed to do from a transition standpoint, as much time as I possibly could, I spent in McKinney basically being the de facto salesperson. Didn't really know a lot about trailers, but I learned very quickly how to complete a trailer sale, and learned enough basic product knowledge. And, I would definitely reach out to the other sales reps when necessary. And then a huge benefit, and I would not be in the place I am today had this not happened. We had a key employee who had left the business in a back office kind of administration role, had left the business prior to my acquisition about 3 months beforehand. She went somewhere else, didn't like it, ended up asking to come back, even though she knew that the business had been sold. So her and I went to lunch. We got along really well and hired her back. And she just immediately started taking over payroll, deposits, basically all of our accounting functions that I was learning on the fly how to do in QuickBooks, and making sure I'm doing payroll on time. And, I'm learning how to do all these things I've been taught by the seller, but I was like trying to be a salesperson in one store, be a new owner, learning a business, and doing all of these back office things. Like it was a lot, right? But so she comes in and she just immediately takes that off. She's like, I got this. I'm doing this is everything I used to do and more, and I'm just going to do it for you. It's like, okay, perfect. So now I can actually be like more present in McKinney in this interim. Now and then I'm starting to interview, replacements. And so it resolved itself, but it was during the middle of the summer, which is our busy time. Mm-hmm. And my who's now my service manager in McKinney, just was an absolute stud during that time, and really stepped up and just handled the workload. Do
you think that there's a good lesson that other searchers can every single time I pitch anyone on like joining a peer group, a lot of the time I say this exact example of like, you just buy a company, your GM quits, and now you have to look to hire a new GM. That's part of your job. You have to do the GM's job, and you have to do your own job as the new acquirer, as the new business owner. Do you think there's a real tangible lesson that searchers can get out of this besides this is a potential scenario that can happen? It will suck. Like, get over it. I don't know what else can be done about this situation, because key employees leave in the first 90 days of an acquisition all the time. It's I'd almost say it's guaranteed that one person pushes a new acquirer into this zone of having to think on your feet, picking up someone else's job.
Yeah.
Is there a tactical way to avoid this?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I think in the one at like the unicorn diamond in the rough, where they have truly documented SOPs for key roles, mm-hmm. Which you don't find very often. I mean, even now, 2 years later, I'm still working through documenting our SOPs, right? And so I think it's probably hard to find a small business that has that, but that would be the only way to.
And I've got to think, if those SOPs are set up when someone quits and leaves, you get the opportunity to see exactly what this person was doing every single day. It's one thing to look at a job description that's 1 or 2 pages long. It's another to see someone's day-to-day activities, which makes, standing operating procedures even more important. Let's talk about a different post-acquisition challenge. I don't know if this is necessarily a challenge, but it was a different dynamic in acquiring a multi-location business, which is you've got different employees across Dallas, and you have to make a post-acquisition announcement speech. Do you drive to each individual location every 3 hours, talking to people at different times? Do you bring them all into one location? How did you handle that day one?
So we brought everyone to this office, had everyone crowded in our front little lobby there. 2 of my employees were on vacation at Disneyland, and so they were on the cell phone. And so everyone's antennas are up, like, what is going on? We're not, like, it's the middle. Really, the only time we all get together is our annual Christmas year-end party. And so now
And this was in June?
This is in June. We're in the middle of the summer. Everyone's brought here. They were told that they were going to be doing inventory.
Can't say early Christmas.
Yeah. They were told they were going to be doing inventory. So that was kind of under the guise of which it was centered. But the sellers, get in there and they announce to the team, and then they bring me in and, like, here's Shane, he's the new owner. And, they had very, very nice, positive things to say. And we had gotten to know each other pretty well during the 120-day transition, or, from initial first call to actually, sitting at the closing table. So they were very complimentary. I was very complimentary of them. But it was still a weird thing, right? Everyone's kind of like, what is going on? Who's this brand new person? And then it's like, all right, let's get to work and count some inventory.
Yeah.
And so, it was definitely a different dynamic. I think, the hard part was, like, all right, I got to meet pretty much all the employees on day one, but then everyone goes off to their individual locations. And as I'm trying to cover for this key employee in McKinney, I'm not really getting to build relationships with these other key employees in my other 2 stores. And, I'm trying to make sure that business is happening as normal. And, one of the things that the sellers, I don't want to say pitched me on, but, said is one of the strengths of the business, which turned out to be very true and is a huge blessing, is that even without a formal kind of authority structure, a lot of my employees take great ownership and are compensated in a way that their goals match the company's goals, right? They're bonused and commissioned off of our gross profit. And so the more gross profit we create, the more money they make. And that creates natural alignment for what the business is trying to drive towards. And one of the things I did diligence, I knew before I met any of the employees, was the tenure. We have a lot of tenured employees. So I'm like, okay, we have some dedicated employees here. That's definitely a strength of the business. If I can come in and show them some quick wins and add some things that help drive even better loyalty, I can probably, expect this tenure to continue for the majority of the employees. And that's bared to be true.
You mentioned something briefly there. What that was, the actual, like, alignment of all employees. You've got a few different services in your company, and we'll talk about this more in depth in a second. But you've got sales, service, and then
Parts. And rentals, but it's a very small amount.
And in each individual position, employees are compensated in different ways. But that specific incentive on gross profit, is that is that one number across the entire company that you'd pay as, like, a Christmas bonus, or individual employees? Do they have different gross profit incentives depending on their specific role? And the reason I ask this, I'm trying to get to an understanding of sales, parts, and service, and how they work together, because it's one thing to have each individual sales employee compensated in their own way that impacts the company's goals. It's another to have them all aligned in the way that, a salesperson really, upsells a customer on premium service, and how we've got a great parts division as well. So is there kind of a synergy there where everyone's aligned on the same gross profit, or is it more on an individual basis of people as individual contributors towards the employer goal?
It's a mix of both. We look at it where each location has a sales department and a parts and service combined department.
Okay.
So we combine parts and service, and then we have our sales. And so the salesperson is essentially an individual contributor driving their own sales and gross profits, and they make commissions and now bonuses off of that. And then the 2 parts and service advisors they pool their commissions together from all the repairs and all the parts that they sell, and or all the gross profit, I should say, and then they get commissioned off of that. And then our technicians have an efficiency incentive. So the more jobs they can get done, the more billable hours they can get through the shop, their hourly rate goes up in a kind of exponential way, which is common within well-run service shops, both in the automotive, RV, and trailer world. There's 1,000 different ways to compensate your employees. And I've talked to a bunch of other trailer dealers, and everyone's got a different method. People pay hourly and just do company-wide bonuses. People have commission only. You have everything in between. We are essentially salary plus commissions and bonuses. Mm-hmm. And it's a strong enough correlation where there's a strong incentive to drive those bonuses and commissions. And then I've just taken what the previous owners had done and done well, and I just added to it. I just kind of try to pour gasoline on the fire. So I changed our annual bonus structure to be potentially much bigger payouts, more focused on kind of overall growth. I added in some monthly bonus opportunities. And then, of course, I've done some contests and some things like that along the way to drive incremental, if we need to do a 2-month sprint on this particular thing, whether it's Google reviews or sell some of our oldest inventory or whatever it might be, just trying to pull from different things we did in my previous life to motivate our employees.
Well, I mean, let's talk about those things specifically. Let's talk about more about the actual operations of a trailer dealership, how it's run. And when you talk about incentives specifically, you said you've got several different structures, quarterly bonuses, annual, and then you've got sort of one-time events that are sort of ad hoc. You figure out which service line in your company you want to pump for a short period of time, which I'm really interested in. But when it comes to, let's talk about the changes you made to the bonus structures. What were they? How were they received by employees?
Yeah, so I really didn't change I didn't change anything for the first 90 days. Pay-wise, structure-wise, SOP, software. And I told the employees from day one, I'm not making a single change for 90 days. So even if you're going to ask about raises, don't come and ask me about them because nothing is changing for the first 90 days. Yeah. I did end up giving basically a raise right after 90 days to all of our tenured employees. I then started down the path of adding health insurance and adding a 401k plan. So rolled those all out within the first 6 months of ownership. And so that was a big sign to the employees that I was very invested in making sure that they had all the benefits that I wanted to be able to provide.
Especially 401k right? And health insurance plan after not having that.
Yeah. And by the way, that's not uncommon in our industry, my industry. But I just felt like, I don't know, that's the kind of work environment I want to add. Now it's expensive. So I don't judge any entrepreneur, whether seller or buyer, if they don't have it, because it's a big cost, but it's makes a big impact on the employees.
I was thinking about this while driving on the way over here because you've talked about how employees didn't previously have health insurance and 401ks, and I was thinking about what is the actual trade-off of dollars? Yes, it's very it's very expensive, but what do you get in return? And my thought was that it acts as a retention tool. If this is something that's uncommon in your industry, then that's something that you shine above on compared to other competitors that might.
It's a retention and an attraction tool.
Yeah.
And that was where I was. My long-term thinking was, yes, I do want to buy some loyalty with my existing employees, and I think this is a pretty easy way to do that. But from a long-term attraction standpoint, right? I have big growth goals for the company. I just hired kind of my first executive leadership position, which is our head of sales or sales manager. And he would not have come aboard had we not been offering those benefits. He was not the kind of candidate. He had spent a lot of time working for companies that offered all those things. And if I were to tell him, yeah, I'll pay you X, but you're not going to have these benefits, he just wouldn't have come aboard.
And you were able to hire someone who you otherwise would not have been able to hire without those incentives.
100%.
That's awesome.
That doesn't have the same impact when I'm hiring a technician, right? They're far more worried about hourly pay, if there's bonuses, overtime, those types of things. But as I look to add more salespeople, sales leadership, service leadership, potentially add locations,
scale,
management layers, when you start talking about your employees who are expecting or wanting to make, 6 figures and up, they all have an expectation of, I'm going to have a 401k, I'm going to have health insurance, I'm going to have these benefits.
Yeah, and previously,
any other job I go to in the corporate world is going to offer me those things.
Previously, they would have written off North Texas trailers off because it just almost as if a checkbox. It's like, do I get 401 health benefits? No. Okay, cross you off the list. And now you're considered.
Right.
Awesome. Okay.
Right. Getting back to your question about bonuses, though, so it was great. Like the sellers built a foundation, a very strong foundation where the employees were mutually aligned with the company's success. He created monthly revenue and gross profit goals for both sales and parts and service, and for each location. And then that equated to an annual bonus or an annual target. And if they hit those or exceeded those, then they would get an annual bonus and would be recognized at our annual party. So everyone, as soon as I started, I realized how important that was to the employees. Like everyone was kind of knew where they were at, compared to their goals. And I was like, all right, this is already a strong motivator and incentive for these employees. What if I made the dollars at the end of the year that much bigger, right? Because I didn't change anything in the very first year, and I had some locations blow their goal out of the water. I had some locations barely beat their goal or just hit their goal, and I had a couple locations fall just short. The bonuses weren't all that different for them, right? There were a few $1,000s different, but I was like, what if I just kind of made this exponential, right? Where if you beat your goal by 20, 30, 40%, now we're talking about some really big bucks potentially at the end. In order to do that, you got to drive, like I said, 20, 30% plus gross profit growth, right?
That's difficult.
Yes, it's a big check at the end of the year, but what am I getting in return for that? I'm getting thousands, hundreds of thousands of improvement in growth in gross profit, right? Which is ultimately what we need to, drive this business forward. So change that in 2023, and it was our best year ever, and by pretty wide margin. And so, is it directly responsible for that? Probably not. There's other factors at play for sure, but it was definitely a huge incentive for the employees, and it was something that was talked about and recognized throughout the year. And then by the time we got to our year-end party, and I'm giving out $10,000 bonuses to some of my employees, that was a big meaningful thing for them. And all the while, right, as they're making those improvements, they're also getting some monthly bonuses and or commissions based on those improvements.
I have to imagine that was those must have been some of the largest bonus checks that they've had in the past decade.
Every single employee made more money in 2023 than they ever had before. Every single employee.
Congratulations. I mean, for you and your entire company, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But, we had our best year ever, right? So they should be rewarded,
yeah, absolutely.
right? I'm not just paying them out of charity or because I want to. I expect results and I pay for those results, right? Yeah. And if you deliver results, then you should be paid for that, in my opinion, right? No different than any kind of customer-facing sales, retention type. I mean, that was the world I came from. And as a general manager and above in my previous company, I only had one annual bonus, and it was tied to, our P&L performance.
Right.
But it was a massive motivator for me, right? That big year-end check that could either be zero or it could be really, really big, depending on how the year's performance went. I know that was a big motivator for me, and I just assumed that, we already have the structure in place. Let's just add more to it.
Yeah. Well, you did it in a really, really great way. Tactically, you mentioned these sort of shorter term incentives where you try to grow seems like a single service and like a single revenue stream of your company. Tell us more about how you do that, because it seems like it's it's ad hoc. It's based on a division of the company. It's more targeted in terms of timing. And it didn't seem like there's too many recurring aspects to it, as in this isn't a standard quarterly bonus or annual. These are one-time events to grow your company in specific ways. Like, can you give us an example of have you done that?
Yeah. I mean, so Google reviews, right? Every every SMB, ETA entrepreneur knows Google reviews are important, right?
Yeah.
And often underutilized in the businesses that are acquired. This business had decent Google reviews and better than most of our competition. But I was like, all right, how do we make it so that we're so much like, how do we really turbocharge this, right? And so it was like one of those things I started talking about and was like, hey guys, when we're checking out a customer, let's ask for a review, let's get QR codes, let's make it easy on the customer, let's do these things. And we're getting traction little by little by little. And it was like, and felt like I was kind of beating my head against the wall. Like, guys, what, I know this is super important. How come nobody else can get how important this is? And I was like, well, what did I do in my previous life when we wanted like a short little sprint and to really supercharge a particular result or sell a particular product or whatever it was? And it was like, let's do a contest, right? And so naturally I have competition because I have 3 stores. And so I can pit the 3 stores against each other. And here's a prize at the end and most Google reviews. And I also pay them for every Google review they do. I pay them $3 for every 5-star Google review we get. I mean, it's not that the benefit it brings is much greater than the dollar value associated to it, right? And whatever prize that we had for that initial contest, like, that was much smaller than the ultimate value that when we double our Google reviews in a 3-month period, that brings immense more value from a marketing standpoint.
And I have to imagine like a one-time contest is also a really good way to bring in, to establish a behavior you want in your companies. Like here's a really, really powerful incentive to do one thing really, really well for the next 2 months. And then once it's done, it continues. You keep an incentive in place and it becomes a behavior of your company rather than like a one-time benefit.
Yeah, that was my thesis as well. It has not worked out as strongly as I would have hoped.
This is the difference between someone who has an idea of what they want to do post acquisition acquire, and then someone who's tried it and learned that it doesn't quite work out the way you always think.
Yeah, people are motivated by contests. They'll put it that way.
Okay.
And so if I were to do another contest, I'm sure I would get an outsized return in a much bigger amount of reviews in a shorter amount of time. Because I thought the same thing. I thought, all right, if we get used to doing this, right, and they demonstrated very well that they could go and get reviews and good reviews. I mean, our customers really are appreciative of the work that we do for them. We repair trailers for people who are in a really big bind, or they have some old trailer and they can't find the right part, and we hunt it down for them and we get them the part that they need. And like if you read our Google reviews, we did a contest, but they're not manufactured. They're not fake. They're legitimate customers that really appreciate the customer service of our employees. And so what I've been trying to reiterate is like, you guys are already doing the hard work of providing great service, right? That's the hardest part, is just doing a good job every day. So why not ask your customers to tell the world about it, right? And you've demonstrated during these contest periods that it's naturally or easier, or, you're motivated to do that. Because if there's not a motivation to do it, it's easier not to ask for the review than it is to do it, right? It's an extra step, but they've done it. And so it's like, guys, why can't we just do this all the time with every customer? But those are the things you learn. Like, yes, you want to drive behaviors, and I'm sure there's a better way to continue to be more consistent about driving this behavior, but we're still doing it. We still get new reviews every month, but just not to the level that I would hope for.
Gotcha.
All right, so this is our parts area. This is a relatively small parts area. We have much bigger area in our McKinney shop, a little bit smaller in our Fort Worth shop. But basically, we try to keep in stock all of the kind of natural parts and accessories that go on a trailer. And we try to keep them somewhat categorized. So over here, we kind of have stuff that helps keep your cargo safe. Over here, we have hitches, locks, electrical, all of our lights. And then we get into more of the suspension, bearings, axles, all those different types of parts, brakes, hubs, springs, chains, kind of anything and everything you might need for a trailer, jacks, batteries, although we're out of stock on batteries right now. So of course, we're constantly ordering more product in, selling it, restocking, and then we have a whole kind of back area where we keep excess inventory as well.
Let's go check out the back area.
Sure.
Show us around, Shane.
Yeah, so we have our driveway here, as you can see. When we already have 2 trailers out here, we get a lot of inbound flow of people bringing their trailers in for repair, for a specific part that they might need. While we represent multiple manufacturers and we can only sell those manufacturers, from a repair standpoint, we can repair any trailer under the sun. And so as you look at our yard, you'll see that there's a whole kind of hodgepodge of different types of trailers that are on our repair side, whereas there's a lot more standardization on the sales side, right? Because like I said, we can service and repair basically any kind of trailer, even some RVs and travel trailers. The chassis.
Did you say RVs?
Yeah, the underbody. Well, travel trailers. Nothing with an engine.
Right.
But any travel trailers, the suspension part. We're not going to do any of the interior, living quarter area work, but we can do all of the axles, brakes, jacks, framework, that kind of stuff.
Well, show us around here. I see there's almost like some private, can you wrap as well? There's just branded stuff over here.
Yeah, so these are a couple of our customer trailers over here. Basically everything on the left side is service, and everything on the right side over here is going to be stuff that's for sale. Down in the very back, it's kind of a little bit split, but over here in front of our shop, we generally have trailers that are already repaired, ready to be picked up. Generally, things on the other side are in queue, ready or waiting on parts, or in queue to get worked on. And then again, over here, we have everything that's kind of for sale.
Okay, so this is all sales, this entire row. Tyler,
Yeah.
do you just want to scan the row and just show them? Give us a range of how expensive these trailers are.
Yeah, so as you can see, we have it basically categorized where we have a whole row of our cargo trailers in the back, and then kind of our utility and equipment haulers here in the front. And then we have all of our kind of dump and roll-off trailers in the back corner there. Like I said, we have 7 different manufacturers we sell. Most manufacturers will specialize in a type of trailer. So, for instance, our cargo manufacturers, which means an enclosed, essentially boxed on wheels.
Yep.
That's what an enclosed cargo trailer is. So we have Pace and Cargo Express and Wells Cargo are the 3 brands that we sell, and they only build cargo trailers. And then for our open side, we have a few different ones. We have Max D's our primary. We have Rockin' S, Raw Max, and we just brought on a new manufacturer that we have yet to receive any inventory for that's a very specialized type trailer.
Nice.
But they only do what's considered open trailers. So open is a very wide range of everything from a small utility, single axle like this one up here, to a larger, hot shot flatbed type trailer that, could be up to 40 feet long, carry 30,000 plus pounds of cargo. And so they kind of build everything in between that's not an enclosed trailer, right?
Yeah. And as we're looking around here, it seems like, is this in your to be serviced column, or is this in completed work? Like, where do you go from in process and then to be worked on and then completed?
So everything
service?
over here on the back side of our shop is going to be in queue to be worked on.
Okay.
Everything over here should be already finished. So as you can see, we probably have eight or 9 trailers here that have been finished, ready to be picked up.
And I think the purpose of this is like, this is under your control, and as it moves closer to the front of the shop, that's where customers are going to see it. That's where they're going to pick up. They don't have to drive back into your vehicle. So that's like almost like a design decision.
Yeah. It helps keep process and flow to where everything is. We keep our rental trailers that we rent out all the way in the back corner there.
Yeah.
You can see everything that's in red that says rent me, obviously a rental trailer. We also partner with Easy Dump Rentals. So we don't rent roll-off or dump trailers, but they do. And then, of course, they don't service or sell them. So any of the customers that they have that need to buy or get repairs to existing dump trailers, we do the work for them. And then any customers that we get that aren't ready to buy, but need a short-term rental on a dump trailer or roll-off, we refer to Easy Dump. So we have a partnership with them, and we let them store their equipment here, and then they buy from us, and so it's a happy marriage. Over here is where our technicians work. As you can see, it is an open-aired shop. Our other two shops are more of a garage-style shop. Eventually, that is in the long-term plans to get a full kind of covered garage style shop, make it even bigger, probably add 1 or 2 more bays. Right now we have 2 technicians, 2 bays, so you're almost always going to see 2 trailers in here being worked on at any given time. We keep some of our excess or larger inventory, such as axles, raw steel, things like that, because we can do really all kinds of different repairs, from welding, fabrication, axle, jacks, brakes, suspension, electrical, anything and everything that goes on a trailer, we can repair or fix. So once it's done, the technicians, they get their work order, the estimates completed by our customer-facing service advisor or service manager. They interface with the technicians. We have a ERP software that shows them what the repair necessary is. If they need to have a more detailed conversation about it, of course, they'll do that in person, say, hey, this is what the issue the customer's having. This is what I think it might be. Can you do this? We also do a complimentary maintenance inspection across the entire trailer for every trailer that comes in. And so we can recommend to the customer, whether it's something they fix today or something they might need to be fixing in the future, potential things to be on the lookout for, right? Once it's finished, the technician clocks in and out of that job, completes it. They let the service advisor know. If they find anything throughout that service repair, they'll, of course, bring it to the service advisor. We go back to the customer, say, hey, as we were doing the repair, we also found this thing. Do you want to fix it? Here's an estimate to fix it. We either get their blessing, yes or no, and we can continue on with the repair. And then we move it over here, let them know it's finished, and then they can come in and pick it out.
And you said briefly, the sales manager, the sales rep that's actually talking with the customer, it sounds like they're the single point of contact between the actual work that goes on in the service and whether any changes need to be made.
Yes.
I think customers prefer that, or to have one person to talk to understand and to build a relationship with.
Yeah. If you see over here, Luis standing underneath the trailer. Luis has just celebrated his 10-year anniversary with North Texas Trailers. He's been in Louisville the entire time. So he's got a personal relationship with hundreds of our customers that come in regularly that have fleets of trailers. And as you can see, he's actually out diagnosing a trailer repair right in our front parking lot. If it's a quick fix and something we can quickly recommend to the customer, we want to do that, right? Every minute, every day that a trailer is in our yard getting work done is a day or an hour that the customer can't be making money off their trailer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think we've spoken about that yet, but you mostly run a B2B business, which means these are small landscaping companies or anything. Everyone who needs to haul equipment of any kind. Drain companies will use trailers to haul drain equipment, and if they've got a $40,000 piece of equipment down, they can't use that to produce $2,000, $5,000 a day. I mean, that's expensive for them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and it's really cool seeing the different ways that trailers are used in business. And we've seen all kinds of crazy stuff. In fact, we might have a really cool trailer still on site. We might have already finished it.
Let's go and try to find it.
But I don't see it right now. So
I already see something that's pretty cool. Is this a small vacuum?
Yeah.
What? Walk us through it. What is this? This is one of the first times I've ever seen a small.
To be honest, I don't know. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean,
let's find out.
You can see we have some dump trailers, some cargo trailers, some utility trailers in queue to be worked on. Over here, this big gooseneck trailer, this big enclosed gooseneck cargo trailer, that's actually a mobile barbecue spot, mobile barbecue concession trailer.
It's this big one right here.
Yeah, and then you can see we have some flatbeds, some hot shot type trailers, a big multi-car hauler trailer that are all in queue to get work done. It looks like we already finished it. We just had a trailer in last week. Really, really cool. The customer is a caterer and does Neapolitan pizzas, and they brought in I think $10,000+ Italian wood making Neapolitan pizza maker or oven, and we built and fabricated this way to attach it to the trailer and this enclosure to keep materials inside of it, and then they just haul that around to parties on the go, and they make Neapolitan pizzas right there.
That had to be a fun project.
Yeah, it's really so it's really cool seeing different things like that. Of before getting into this business, yes, I had seen trailers on the road, but I had no idea the far-reaching abilities that trailers, what they are capable of.
Yeah. I'm exploring that world right now. Well, let's talk through a little bit more. So you've got longer trailers here. This one looks like it's about 40 feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as you can see, I mean, wide array of what we can service. because of our smaller footprint, less than 2 acres, we generally don't carry as much of the large inventory as maybe some of our competition. And it's simply a space constraint. If I had 6, 7 acres, I'd carry a lot more of that, right?
How do you actually solve that problem? Because, this one location is maxed out on space, but, do you open up a space a couple blocks down the road with like another smaller location? Or is you buy just a storage yard?
Well, one of our competitive advantages is the fact that we have 3 locations, and they're all only about 30 minutes apart.
Yeah.
And so that might look as like kind of a cannibalization of customers, but DFW is big enough where it's really not that, right?
Yeah.
But we can sell inventory from all 3 lots. So if a customer comes onto my lot here in Louisville and we don't have exactly what they need, I can look at my Fort Worth shop and my McKinney shop and see what we have in inventory there. And maybe we found something that meets their needs a little bit closer. So, we're constrained. At most, we could probably carry about 100 trailers here in inventory. Fort Worth around the same, and in McKinney maybe at most 50, right? So let's say we max out on inventory at 250. I can't fit 250 here, but I still have 250 in inventory that I can sell to my customers, regardless of which of the 3 locations they come in, as well as I have an outside account executive that is doing basically B2B direct sales, trying to identify and find customers that have a fleet of trailers, 5 or more, and are going to be doing, kind of multi-trailer purchases, right? To either expand their fleet or replace items in their existing fleet. And so he's selling from any of the 3 locations as well, right? He's doing outbound sales. So he doesn't have his own dealership with his own inventory. He's pulling from the inventory we have at our existing locations, or we can go right to our manufacturers and do a special order specific for that customer.
Right, and let's actually talk about this. This was a recent hire for you, right?
Yes.
Is this a common sales role, B2B development role in the trailer industry?
It is not. I don't know of any other competitors that have it. And what I kind of quickly realized, because of our great capabilities in parts and service, because of our central locations within the DFW area, it's an advantage that we have over some of our competition. Like I said, that's more on the outskirts of town. And if you spend a week here in Louisville or in my McKinney or in Fort Worth, you'll see some of the repeat customers. In fact, we passed a trailer up there for a customer that's right down the road. I have one of their trailers in my shop almost every single week because they have so many of them, right? It's not that what we're fixing continues to break, but they continue to break
trailers,
them.
and at a certain point, a percentage is going to break every
week. And so we pretty much have one of their trailers in our shop almost every single week. And so it's that kind of customer that we want. They trust us, and they only bring their trailers to us to repair them. When they need to replace them, they come to us. Those are the kind of relationships we want to have, right? I'll sell a trailer to anyone who comes on the lot and wants to buy one, but I'm not targeting, the guy with a side-by-side ATV that is going to, buy a trailer and hold on to it for 10 years, just to, have his, move his side-by-side around.
Yeah, you're targeting the business owner who's got hundreds of trailers and they want to work with one vendor to go to for consistent service, and they know that it's going to have quick service time. They're going to get back on the road, and they don't have to worry about anything like quality of craftsmanship or how many different trailer service shops that they'll work with at any time. If they've got one trailer breaking down every single week, depending on, they could be working with multiple vendors, and that's just painful.
Yeah, I learned this in my corporate job. I still feel this way as a business owner today. Well, price is obviously important. I think today's consumer, especially B2B consumer, values service, trust, and dependability and convenience over price. So if I can deliver on those things, if I can make the trailer buying experience convenient and reliable and consistent for them, if I can make their repairs convenient and easy for them, and now through doing that repeatable over and over again for them, there's naturally trust built up that they trust that I'm going to take care of their needs. As a buyer for a business, or an owner or a general manager or a fleet manager or safety manager, whoever that end user is, they would much rather do that than every time they have to buy a trailer, go and shop 6 or 7 different places.
Yeah, and these types of synergies in your company where they're going to sales for one spot, service for one spot, parts for one spot, and you know, sort of how all three connect as a synergy with each other with multiple locations. That's how you turn like a one-time trailer sale into a multi-decade-long relationship where someone comes back to you and it turns out that you're the trailer guy that they use for every single purchase after that, which goes from a one-time sort of project-based sale into reoccurring sales.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to own the life cycle of a customer's trailer fleet, right? When they need to replace one, they come to me. When they need to expand, they come to me. When they need to repair, they come to me. When they need general maintenance, they come to me. If they need a part or an upfit or a modification, they come to me, right? And I become that one-source solution for all of their trailer needs. That's the goal, right? And we have that existing relationship with a lot of our large clients. And so the goal of our account executive is to go out and find customers that are dealing with that same problem and give them the solution that is North Texas Trailers.
I love it. Well, let's go check out the rest of your yard. I don't know, what do you call these in the back right here?
These are all cargo trailers. So basically over here, these are all kind of dump trailers. So dump means that the bed raises up and can tilt at a 45-degree angle. So you can haul around, you know, loose material, gravel, sand, debris, whatever it might be. Any of these kind of flatbed trailers are meant for hauling equipment and or cars. Like this is specifically a car hauler over here.
What distinguishes a car hauler versus something that's going to haul a backhoe?
Basically the strength of the trailer, the weight limit it can carry.
Okay.
You know, you don't need as much strength for a car hauler.
I was curious because these, if you just look at them, you know, it's a flat bed and it's tires and there's not too much else. But I assume the inner workings of them allow, you know, if you're going to tow a backhoe, you need an extra 10, 20,000 pounds.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, one of the kind of small differences you can see, this trailer and this other trailer have what we call drive-over fenders. So they're at a much lower approach angle. They're reinforced and much stronger than this fender. So if I have a wider vehicle, maybe even a dually truck, I can drive up over those fenders and not break them and be able to get my wider piece of equipment on there. With here, whatever I'm hauling, I need to be able to fit within these fenders. I can't go over the top of them. And then, of course, you have what we call deck overs, which is where the deck completely goes over. There are no fenders, so it's an entirely flat surface, like this one here. And so the benefit when you see trailers that are lower and inside the fenders, people want to have lower. It's a lower center of gravity. It makes for easier hauling. When you get up into the bigger, longer, heavier duty trailers, they're almost always going to be deck overs. So you have that full width, 102 inches wide, which is the maximum legal width of a trailer. And then you have that full area to load whatever material you're going to be hauling.
Amazing.
My favorite trailer is this, and it's the black one in the back there. This is called. Let me make sure it's charged real quick. Okay. So this is the Maxi Drop and Load, which in my humble opinion is one of the coolest trailers out there. This is designed for hauling high-end cars. And what makes it a drop and load is that it drops, it rides on air suspension, and those airbags deflate, and it allows the bed of the trailer to drop almost entirely to the ground. So whether you have a Lamborghini or a hot rod with a really low clearance, you can still get it up safely onto the trailer and haul it to your car show, to the track, wherever you want to take it. So we're charging up the airbags right now, and as you can see, it's at a full ride height right now. But if I just press these buttons, I can drop it all the way to the floor. And so now I've created this really low approach angle where whatever I'm driving can get up on here. As you can see, we have multiple tie-down points. We have 2 rows of E-track. We have 8 D-rings. You can put a winch up there in the front. If your car, is undrivable, you can winch it up and get it still onto your trailer and get it out of where, to your next location. We've got a nice aluminum rock shield there to protect your car. So in my opinion, this is one of the coolest trailers that we sell. It's a Max D proprietary product. And Yeah, whenever I invest and have my sweet sports car, I'll be towing it with one of these.
Yeah. That's one less expense you have to buy when you buy your luxury sports car.
So when you're ready you get your car all tied down and hooked up, you're ready to get back on the road, you just press these buttons here, and it raises the axles back up and inflates the airbags.
Beautiful.
All right, let me show you this cargo trailer up here. So we just recently were a platinum sponsor at the Dallas Build Expo, which caters to the home building community. And as a target customer base of ours, we wanted to showcase what we can do at North Texas Trailers and some examples of trailers that people in the construction, landscaping, home building environments or trades, what they can utilize a trailer for. So this trailer is kind of, got a lot of different options of things that are capable of what we could add to a cargo trailer. You have a hydraulic jack here, or electric jack, makes lowering and raising the to get on and off your truck super easy.
Right.
Literally the click of a button, get it hooked up. We'll come in here from the very back. So this one's got a heavy duty ramp door. This thing can carry, I think you can load up to 7,000 pounds on the actual ramp gate. Mm-hmm. So if you have a really heavy piece of equipment, you can drive it up, get it inside the trailer. We've got E-track embedded in the floor and in the walls. We've got multiple tie-down points throughout the trailer. So whatever piece of equipment you have, you can get it in here safely. You can tie it down safely. It's protected. This one is insulated. As you can see, we have the insulated walls and roof. We have air vents that cut out. You can actually put a full air conditioner or heater unit on either one of these. We have cabinets built out here in the front for easy storage of whatever loose material you have.
What is a typical customer? Who's going to buy this?
This could be both an office, like office or trailer, kind of construction site trailer with the desk or with the cabinets. We have the option to build out a lot longer, kind of cabinets and other, electrical. There's, you can see we have electrical plugs here, so you can plug in electronics in here, run kind of a mobile office type station. This one is kind of, like I said, this is a little bit of a hodgepodge of showing both an equipment style hauling trailer as well as an insulated kind of office style trailer. This one has a built-in generator compartment just on the opposite side of this cabinet that you can access from the exterior of the trailer. We've got a plug in there to put an air compressor. You can put air compressor lines directly into here. So if you have an air gun or whatever kind of air compressor tools you have, you can hook right up into here and then just walk right out, and you have an automatic feed line there. So this just shows kind of an example of some of the really cool things that we can do to customize a trailer specific to a customer's needs.
Awesome, man. Let's go inside.
All right.
Shane, we've spoken a lot about revenue, how money's made in your company and the different ways it is, sales, parts, service. Really quickly, I'd like you to touch on the cost structure, but also please give us a sense of scale in your business, revenue, employee side, whatever's comfortable for you. And then let's talk about cost structure.
Yeah, so the business was right around a $7.5 million business up until 2021. COVID really impacted our industry in a beneficial way. Mm-hmm. With all the money that was put into the economy, the supply chain became really strained. And so basically, if you had a trailer, you could sell it. And so every dealer probably had their best year in 20 or 21. And then when I bought in 22, the industry had kind of flipped, and it started where demand had finally caught up. Supply chain was no longer as much of an issue, and as demand unfortunately started to fall. And so you had these kind of gravy train years for 20 and 21. So the business kind of inflated up to $9.5 million. But as I kind of expected when I was doing the analysis, is that these manufacturers, like the cost of a trailer has gone up 40, 50% in that time frame.
Right, raw materials.
The manufacturer is not going to, they're going to get used to making that. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to want to lower prices even when the raw inputs start to come down, which is bared out to be true. They've come down from their peak maybe 10 to 20%.
but they're still much higher than they were pre-pandemic. So, like I said, it was about $9.5 million when I bought. In 23, we did just under $10.5 million. So we exceeded that big $10 million mark, which was a huge milestone for us and something I'm very proud of. When I bought the business, we were running lean and mean. We had 16 employees. Today we have 25 employees. Wow. So I've added a lot more costs on the sales side and kind of the admin side as well.
$10.5 million in sales on 25 employees. I mean, if a polar opposite business model as yours is like commercial janitorial, where the entire business model is effectively selling labor. Mm-hmm. That's $10.5 million. I mean, you would have hundreds of employees to do that amount. I mean, definitely like 100 to 200 easily in commercial janitorial.
Yeah, and my dad owns a home care franchise, right? And so it's the same thing. His entire cost is labor, is caregivers, mm-hmm. right? And so they have 200 plus, part-time caregivers, and they're doing less in revenue than we are. Our single biggest, input or revenue is our trailer sale, right? Yeah. Our average trailer sale in 2023 was around $9,000. So you can just, that adds up pretty quickly, right? If every time I sell a trailer, I'm averaging $9,000 in revenue, you can get there pretty quickly. So, cost of goods is definitely the single biggest cost, right? Mm-hmm. And in the dealership world, for the most part, most dealers floor plan or use a line of credit to buy their inventory.
Okay.
So I have a bank that I have a line of credit with that has a relationship and sponsors or works with the manufacturers that I sell. So when I place an order to my manufacturer and I say, I want these 10 trailers, and it's going to be $50,000 or whatever the cost is going to be, I don't stroke a check for $50,000 when they finish those trailers and deliver them. The bank does. The bank pays the manufacturer. The manufacturers have different relationships, where they will sometimes give an incentive to their dealers of free interest period on that line of credit, depending on the model. So on some models I get 0 free flooring. On some models I get up to 90 days of free flooring, which means that from the minute the trailer finishes at the manufacturer and hits my yard, I begin paying. If I have no free flooring, I begin paying interest on it from the day it hits my lot. Immediately. And that interest accrues and I pay it monthly. And then as soon as I sell that trailer, I pay off the principal amount. And so that's the general working relationship in most dealerships. And so I'm constantly, buying more inventory and then selling it and then paying down that line of credit. And it's just a constant revolving
I've got to think the only other alternative would be to just use personal cash, which would be a larger strain on working capital. Right?
Yeah, and there are some dealerships, especially more dealerships that have been around long enough, where they can afford that and they can carry, $1 million+ worth of inventory that they paid cash on delivery for. Right now, I just don't see that as the best use of our free cash flow.
Right.
And I don't want to have, we carry at any given time around $1.5 million worth of inventory. I don't want to have that much money tied up in inventory, even if I can save on the interest expense, which is a significant expense,
right?
Especially in today's interest rate environment. But the time value of money versus the interest versus it's just it's this trade-off, right? And that's probably the single hardest thing in the industry is gauging what inventory to buy and when. Particularly on the sales side. The parts side is a little bit more consistent. But the trailer side, right? Because every time I buy a trailer,
you need to sell.
My input is, my cheapest trailer sells for $2,500. Mm-hmm. My most expensive trailers can sell for over $50,000. And so when I'm buying inventory, I gotta be right, right? Because the longer it sits every day it sits in my yard is an expense. And so that's been the biggest challenge, probably the single biggest challenge in owning this business is trying to dial that in, right? And the owner, this is definitely a skill the owner honed in what was better at than me, for sure. He had better inventory turns, better control over the inventory, and it's still a skill that I'm building and learning.
What do you do with a piece of inventory you've bought and it isn't selling? And what is the actual turnaround time you sort of expect? And when do you start to get worried that you've bought a bad piece of equipment or a piece of equipment that people don't necessarily want?
Yeah. So, the old owner would basically, if something sat for more than 90 days, and especially more than like 120 days, alarm bells would start going off.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's multiple reasons why. The macroeconomic environment has changed. We carry more inventory than the previous owner did. And I've had a little bit of turnover in sales. And so our average day, we call it days on lot, and we track it. Our average days on lot has definitely gone up significantly since acquisition. And like I said, there's a lot of reasons for it. But if I have something, and I've had trailers sit here for over a year without selling, and once they hit the year mark is when the floor plan makes it very punitive to hold on to that piece of inventory. And so really the only lever you have when something's not selling is to discount it, right?
Yep.
We have discounted some trailers down to the point where I've lost money on them because I've paid more in interest than what the gross profit I actually make.
Cash flow.
But I'm just trying to get it off my lot, right? And sell sell this loser at a loss so that I can buy a winner and sell it at full profit, right? Yeah. And that's the game you got to play. And it's definitely it's been the hardest one to learn.
How do you think it's learned? I mean, the seller, after 20 years, however long you was in the business, like I would understand that you just get a pulse, a market on what people are looking for and what trends are arising. Is that what it takes? Just time in the game?
It's time in the game. It's, you can use data to your advantage. And this is an area that I could definitely be better at, is looking at what has been our best sellers traditionally, what has sold really well, what's had the lowest average days on lot, and then stocking those items and using that as maybe the 80-20 rule, right? Where 80% of what I stock is based on historical trends of what is sold well and sold fast. And the other 20% is maybe the one-off or, different versions of a trailer that I don't have any real previous history on, but I'm going to take a chance on it because I think I can sell it. One of the things that I did, so some of this is intentional, is that I told my sales team, I want to stock more inventory. I'm a firm believer that you need to have inventory. It's easier to sell if you have it, right? And we do order trailers all the time for our customers, especially if they're a more custom build. And some customers are fine with that, right? They have a longer time horizon. But when you get a customer that has a need today, they're not waiting. Our builds from our manufacturers are anywhere on the short end from 6 weeks to as much as 16 weeks. And so they can't wait that amount of time
and most
if they have a need today.
Most of these small businesses you're working with probably only have a handful of trailers. If they've got business to buy a fourth, they need to act on it quickly.
Right. And so if I don't have it, they're going to go down the street to my competitor and get it. And so we've increased the amount of inventory. At the beginning of 2023, I told my sales team, I said, let's take some shots on some stuff we haven't really sold in the past. Let's give it a try, right? Let's see what other markets we can kind of create. And unfortunately, we didn't have a very strong batting average on those.
On that, batting average, is there a specific number that you've seen or that you've looked at compared to the previous owner's ability to find good equipment and have a good eye on what's going to sell versus your own? Is there like a number that you've looked at that's seen like, we're holding more inventory on site longer than we normally would pre-acquisition? Yeah,
so the owners averaged around 60 days on lot for every sale that they made. And then in 2021, it was less than 30 days because as soon as you got inventory, you were selling it, right? And that was probably true for all dealers. Since then, it has ballooned up to 90 plus, almost 100 days on lot, which is not where we want it to be at. If I could get back to the 60-day range, I'd be very happy. But again, that's some new salespeople, that's increasing total inventory amounts, taking some chances on some oddball pieces of inventory that just didn't sell very well. And we've added some new manufacturers as well, right? And so, right now I'm in the very bottom part of the J curve, right? 2023 was a good year. So far, 2024 has really kind of started out. We're still growing, and we should hopefully show top line growth over prior year, but going from 16 employees to 25, adding in those benefits, increasing our inventory, our floor plan spend, a number of other items, increasing marketing budgets, things like that I've done. Like so far, these first 5 months of the year have been, we're able to pay all our bills and everything else is fine, but it's not, there's not as much excess cash flow as I would hope for.
Right.
And so, I look at all that as an investment. I'm building the foundation today because I have a long-term time horizon and I'm not trying to hit some specific IRR. So I have a long-term time horizon, so I can make the necessary investments today with headcount, with inventory, with bring on new manufacturers where I feel like we have a competitive advantage. I can increase my parts inventory. I can do things. I can add new tools and things like that in my shops that we didn't have before. I can spend money on those things because I'm going to get a long-term investment out of it. Mm-hmm. It's about getting momentum right now. And that's kind of the single biggest thing I'm working on is my new outside account executive and my new sales manager, two very, expensive positions, that we need to really grow our trailer sales in order for those positions to pay for themselves, and get the return that I'm looking for. And they know it. I've had this conversation directly with them. So, but it's an investment, right? There's a ramp up period. There's an onboarding. It takes time. We have an outside account executive that's doing something that, as far as I know, no other dealership is doing. So we are going out hunting new business versus waiting for business to come to us. And that takes time to get momentum. But I am confident in our guys' ability and in doing this, that long term, this will be a huge revenue generator for us.
Have you spoken with Matt Saskin at all?
Yes.
About the specifically hired sales side? Did I make that introduction, or did you guys find each other naturally?
He brought it up at one of the talks at SM Bash, and so I went and found him afterwards.
Gotcha.
And
yeah.
In fact, I meant to connect with him on a more detailed level about it because I have some resources I was going to share with him. But
yeah, he just made a very similar hire, like an account executive, business development role in the towing industry. Is less than 1% of towing companies do it, and I was like, that is a very similar position, especially when you consider, the long time aspect of actually building relationships, like generating long term B2B sales.
Yeah,
and how you compensate a salesperson on that is it's tricky.
Yeah,
it's tricky.
Yeah, and I learned this in the corporate role where obviously our budget was millions, if not billions of dollars, but the sales investment in sales people, in sales processes, in sales playbooks. It is an expensive upfront investment, and it can take a long time to see the return you're looking for in those investments. I've done all of that. I've hired a sales coach to help build a sales process, hired outside recruiters to find our outside account executive and our sales manager. I've hired those people. We are building towards something that I think differentiates us from our competition in a pretty big way, mm-hmm. with the talent that we brought on. But talk to me in a year, and if we're not seeing an ROI at that point, then I might have to pivot. But I'm confident that if we were to sit down a year from now, both those positions would be more than paying for themselves, mm-hmm. and those investments would be paying off.
On a different subject of the struggle with moving certain types of trailers, how much do you sell nationally?
Not very much. In fact, very, very little. I mean, I think 99.9% of our sales are in the state of Texas.
Do you consider that an opportunity? I mean, like there's a company, they sell used equipment, which doesn't fit your brand new trailer. It's called Boom and Bucket. And yeah, they just sell used equipment. And they're like a marketplace.
Ironically, one of my best friends is interviewing for a job there, so I am aware of it. But
I'm curious if there's other even Facebook Marketplace. I don't know how if that's possible. And I know you get added costs of like maybe having to transfer a trailer to a new location, which is expensive.
So that's the single biggest hurdle, both in which manufacturers we choose to sell, and how and where we sell our trailers, right? Because transportation costs add up very quickly, and it doesn't become cost effective for the end user to buy. If they're in the state of Washington, I can promise you they can find any trailer on my lot cheaper from somebody in or around mm-hmm. the Washington area than they could if I were to sell it direct to them, right? When you add in those transportation costs.
Understood.
And so, even my best friend who lives in Oregon wanted to get a dump trailer, and I was like, you got to buy from me. And he ended up finding one local, and I was like, I can't beat that. Like, and by the time I drive it out there to you and all these other, I would be throwing money away, and so would he. And so it's like that's the hurdle that makes it challenging. But if we could solve for that and build or have a partnership with a logistics company that helped make that cost significantly reduce that cost or make that cost more able to be absorbed in some way.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there's I don't know what they call them. They call them like empty loads when like a freight company has to like move just like an empty truck,
Right.
4 hours down the road. It's like, well, that might as well be filled with like some type of cargo.
Right.
So a local driver or the company that the driver works for will fill that load at a reduced price and then transport it. And that might be, I don't know, it's an option. At a certain point, you have to like understand what business you want to be in, and if this is a large enough problem to really solve, and how easy it would be to solve this holding.
On that note,
inventory.
I have a piece of advice that I found out, or I think can be applied to a lot of other people doing this. So when I was looking at the business, one of the big selling points in the sim and further conversations with the seller was that they had invested this money to help build the infrastructure to have an e-commerce storefront on the website, sell parts online. And I was like, not knowing anything, I was like, man, that's the future, right? E-commerce, right? If we can if we can start selling our parts now, instead of just people that walk into our stores, we can sell to anyone, right? With a phone or a computer. And he had built the infrastructure, but it wasn't revenue generating yet, right? We weren't doing any kind of Google ads or necessary things to drive traffic to it. And so it was like, all right, when I took over, it was like, all right, we'll get to it. And partly because I don't have an e-commerce background. If I did, maybe this would be a different proposition, but I don't have that. That was going to be a whole skill set I was going to have to learn. And as I'm learning how to run the business that we're already doing, where we're already making revenue, I'm trying to find time to throw myself into how do we start basically this new service line, this new, almost brand new business, right? And I pivoted, and I've essentially completely scrapped the e-commerce storefront, and I've just tried to double down on what I really looked more at. What are we already doing well, and how do we get better at that, right? How do we make the difference? How do we create a moat between our competition in the things that we already do versus trying to do something that we've never done before, where there are already competitors out there that are doing e-commerce at scale, and I'm going to have to throw hundreds of thousands of dollars in advertising just to try to compete with those guys when I don't even have the same infrastructure that they do. Mm-hmm. And all that money and time that I'm spending doing that is taking me away from how do we make life easier on our customers? How do we make life easier on our existing employees? And so, I guess the takeaway there is like, you have grand ideas of what you're going to do and what things you're going to change in the business, or what new service line or product you can start or maybe even, expand upon. And then you get into the business and you realize like I said, if somebody else had bought this business and who had an e-commerce, maybe they could have made it a home run. But for me, it was like, let's just focus on what we do well and just get better at that. Right. There are already so many things that I felt like we could improve upon, like rather than spend a bunch of time on that, let's just focus on what else we can do.
I love that insight. When you think of other things that could help either searchers or operators early in their careers, do you have anything else that sort of sticks out to you as like words of wisdom, words of advice?
Yeah, I mean, I literally had 2 conversations yesterday with a friend and then with somebody who pinged me on LinkedIn, who are both in the very early stages of search. And this is not groundbreaking. A lot of other people